Welcome to this afternoon's podcast. I'm Natalie Calvert, and I'm joined this afternoon by Graham Hoskins from Hybrid Work Smart and Maria Heckel. Over the next 20 minutes or so, our agenda is pretty jam-packed. I'm delighted that as part of Flying Frog, we've got Maria here today, because I think it's really important to get the marketing view on the world. So let me just briefly introduce Maria, and then I'm just going to go straight in fast with some questions for you. So Maria is a very strategic board director with a very strong track record in building brands and great customer experiences, delivering both income and profitable growth across, well, so many sectors, it's unbelievable really, but travel, transport, automotive, advertising, agencies, retail. Maria has a breadth of experience that is pretty unrivaled, I would say. And having worked with her over a period of time, her expertise is very sharp, and it delivers without a shadow of a doubt. So that's all I'm going to say. I don't want to blow your trumpet too much, Maria, because I think the proof of the pudding is in what you're about to say. So welcome and thank you for joining us on Flying Frog today. So what we're going to start off talking about is really creating the right foundation. So around culture. So I was looking, and 38%, it's always good to have a stat, isn't it? 38% of customer leaders have putting a customer-centric culture as their number one priority as they move forward with digital transformation, hybrid working, everything that's going on. Culture and building that right culture is the key thing. So the challenge is, how do you do it in a hybrid world, Maria? Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for the really lovely introduction, Natalie. You're making me blush. I think, you know, we know that giving customers a great branded experience is a key driver of business success. You know, there's lots of different metrics out there to sort of quantify the impact, but they all show that, you know, it has a huge impact on revenue, profitability, and customer retention. You know, if you're a brand that focuses on customer experience, and most importantly, about 80% of customers think that experience is the biggest influence on their loyalty to a brand. So for me, it's, you know, it's always right at the heart of what I'm thinking about. And I think you're right, as we look to sort of recover and grow post-pandemic, it's more important than ever that we focus on delivering those great brand experiences. And, you know, for me and for people that know me, they know I've got a saying, which is great brands are built from the inside out through people.
Yeah,
and
just say that again slowly, because that is just so powerful. When people get their head around that, I think it's incredibly powerful. Just one more time slowly.
No, that's fine. Well, you know, for me, great brands are built from the inside out through people. Yeah. And, you know, the way that you do that really is to galvanize the people in your organization around, you know, a vision, strong, clear vision, strong kind of values and behaviors that underpin that, you know, and really great communication that builds on that. And I think as we shift into, you know, hybrid working and different models of working, then it's really important that we adapt those things, our vision, our culture, and our values, to actually reflect the change and just reevaluate how we do things.
So what kind of things would you do to make that really tangible, really, you know, work for the front line? There's a lot of people that will listen to this will say, well, I understand what you get. I hear all the vision and mission stuff and values and behavior. So, you know, there's some real practical things in this that people can do.
I think it's really important to have the right foundations in place, and to connect people to what it is you're really trying to achieve as an organization. So like many, I'm a fan of a gentleman called Simon Sinek, and he came up with a model that he calls the Golden Circle, but he focuses on, you know, organizations understanding why they exist. And I think if you can identify as an organization your purpose, why you exist, and help your people connect to that, it's really powerful and gives you a really great platform. And I think, as an example, and it's all very topical at the moment, if we take Tesla, their purpose is to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. And I think if you work at Tesla, you kind of get why you're coming to work every day and what you're trying to achieve. So for me, having that strong foundation and building that, that kind of clear purpose and vision for your people, then really helps them to connect to that. And I think, in an environment where we're going to be more disconnected, working in a hybrid way, then actually having that strong foundation is really, really important. And
that was going to be one of my that was going to be one of my questions. Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions, which is when physically your team are disconnected from each other, from you as a leader, and they feel physically disconnected from the business, that surely that makes it even harder to kind of to build those foundations, do you think?
But I think if you've got a really clear and simple, so for me it's about simplicity, it's about clarity, and it's about having consistent communication. And I think if you can have those things, so I think I do think there's a danger sometimes that we try and overcomplicate things, but actually if we make it really, really simple. I've worked a lot in travel organizations, and in one of the businesses that I worked in, our sort of reason d'etre was all about making travel simple. And so actually we would say, to our people, does that make traveling simpler? If it does, great, do it. If it doesn't, don't. So I think, kind of simplicity is really key. And obviously that kind of communication. And I think we need to think about communicating in different ways as well to sort of engage people. I really like the use of sort of video, infographics, those kind of things, stuff that's much more engaging. And I think, having people within the organization talking to other people, so actually seeing a brand manager or a marketing manager talking about the latest campaign is far better than a communication coming out to tell you that the next campaign is coming. And I think, again, we're going to have to think about ways to create the more kind of human connections and contacts as we move to a situation where we're not seeing each other as much as we're used to, and we don't have those human interactions. We need to create those platforms within our organizations to be able to communicate in a different way.
I agree. Sorry, Graham. I was just going to say, right now we're seeing, this whole big thing about people leaving organizations and resigning and going to work for other organizations. And so very early on right now, we're seeing a big symptom, if you like, of organizations not doing a lot of what you've just said. So employees have become disconnected, really. They're no longer as loyal as they were. They no longer trust what's going on. That's a little bit of a society thing, I know, but these things keep people in organizations and working for great managers.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Natalie, I really agree with that. I mean, building that transparent culture and building trust is really important.
I think that the messages about how an organization is addressing hybrid working, some of those are very clear, and we see it in some of the bigger brands who made very clear statements earlier in the summer about how they're either going to be back at the office or they're not going to be. But I see a lot of organizations where the message is still not clear, or the message is complicated. If the message was very simple, which is you can come to work for us and you can be flexible in this way. So sometimes that might be you can be in the office 2 days a week and at home 3 days, or it could be as simple as you can do whatever you want. It's whatever works, whatever model works for them. But keeping that message very clear and very simple, that would be key to both attracting staff and keeping them, because the number of staff that are moving because they don't get that.
Yeah.
Right now they've got uncertainty, right? They don't know what's going on. It's uncertainty for all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I mean, there's lots of stats out there that says, how many employees, are wanting to kind of retain that flexibility that they've sort of created. And I guess, you know, from my perspective, you know, I'm really supportive of that, but then my nervousness comes in, actually, can we fulfill the customer experience in that way, as well as or better than we were doing it before we moved to this kind of model of working? And I think we have to accept, to some degree, it might be somewhat of an iterative process. And the one thing that I would say is, I think we have to listen to our customers, and we have to listen to our employees too, and bring the two together, to find a way through.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm on that page. I totally agree.
If I reflect back over the last 6 podcasts now we've done, and one of the very consistent messages we've had from everybody who's come along and joined us is that, by and large, hybrid working has not affected the customer experience. There may have been, you know, a little dip here and there, or indeed actually a peak, but it hasn't affected the customer experience. And I think that's a real thumbs up for this way of working.
Yeah. I think from my perspective, there are some watch outs, Graham, because I think there are some challenges, and I think actually it's more about, I think, the kind of integration, because obviously we all moved at pace into digital channels. You know, we were responding to a crisis situation. We put things in place quickly, and I think now that this is becoming a permanent way of working in many organizations, we need to sort of think about the digitization that we've undertaken, and actually how well that integrates with the human experiences that we're still offering to customers. And I think it's that sort of harmonization of those two things that's the challenge. You know, 75% of customers still want human interactions. Yeah. And the challenge for us is to blend that ability for customers to kind of do the self-service, those interactions, but then to be able to quickly sort of escalate through to a human being. You know, there's a recent survey that was done by the CMO's organisation, so Chief Marketing Officers organisation, and in that, 87% of customers said they found it really frustrating having to repeat themselves and repeat information in multiple channels. And I think that's one of the big challenges that, you know, organisations have to kind of catch up on, this integrated omni-channel experience. And you know, and make that sort of move from a digital channel to speaking to a person seamless.
Absolutely, and equip them with the skills to deal with these much more complex conversations. I was in conversation the other day with an organisation, and they're measuring now how irate their customers are. Okay. Right, so they've put in place that measure, and they've decided through their analytics that customers now are 30% plus more irate than they were pre-pandemic, right? So it's, you know, our frontline teams that are delivering customer experience are having to do that in a world which is full on in terms of pretty angry and frustrated customers, often driven through, exactly as you're saying, poor digital design that's not bringing the two together. It's keeping them as two separate functions.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, that's going to be increasingly, I think, the point of tension, you know, that customers, and I think the challenge that we've got obviously is the breadth of digital experiences. You know, some businesses were already on this journey before COVID hit, and therefore they're in a much better place. They've got great integrated CRS systems that you know will populate, you know, whatever channel with all of the customers' information, and you can just continue on a conversation that was started in a digital channel. You know, sadly, not all of us are in that place, and we're on a journey. So I think thinking about how we equip that. I mean, I think, you know, I've recently had a disappointing personal experience, and I won't name and shame the brand, but I rang up to ask some questions, and it was quite a complicated set of issues that I had. But each time the individual that I was speaking to, and I had 3 questions, had to actually put me on hold and then call out to a supervisor. So again, you know, that you mentioned earlier, Natalie, having the right knowledge systems, or even maybe changing the narrative that we have with customers to, you know, if they've got more than one inquiry, try and kind of tease that out early on. If you think, because I came off that call feeling a little bit concerned because, you know, I wasn't sure how reliable the information that I was getting was. And I'm sure the agent didn't feel very good at the end of that call, because they'd had to call out to their supervisor 3 times to sort of answer the questions. And if they'd have had a knowledge system that gave them that information, they'd have been able to sort of deal, because it was more about knowledge than it was difficult in any other sense. So I think, you know, and as a customer, I came away, you know, feeling, you know, a bit uncomfortable. And I think, you know, we need to be careful, because through all this disruption, and again from a marketing point of view, you know, 73% of customers in this CMO survey said that they'd consider or kind of question interacting with the brand when they encountered these kinds of issues. So I think, you know, for all of us, it's a kind of watch out point, really, in terms of, you know, making sure we can kind of give those seamless and smooth experiences.
To play devil's advocate a little bit, you know, you've kind of got marketing owning digital and working alongside IT, of course, but marketing owning that strategy on the customer journey mapping and digital integration. And then the other side of it, you've got the human side of customer service or customer support, however it's called, being managed often by the operational teams. So the $6 million question is, where should that sit?
And I think the answer is probably slightly different for each organisation. What I do think is there needs to be far greater collaboration,
Right.
And a recognition of, actually, you know, the customer. You know, we talk a lot about customer at the heart of a business, you know, customer-centric businesses, but actually we've got to live that. And we have to put the customer at the center of things, and then design our experiences from that. And, you know, and that move to sort of omni-channel can't just be about the technology aspects of it. It's got to be about the human aspects of it as well, and how we make it seamless and integrated from a customer's perspective. And I think I've been really fortunate, Natalie, that in many of my businesses that I've worked in, I've had responsibility for both, so that does make it a bit easier.
Makes it easier.
It does make it easier to bring those things together. But I think, you know, listen, we've just sort of had a trigger, I guess, from a transformation point of view for all businesses to really sort of take a step back and rethink and relook at how we structure and organize our businesses. And I think, you know, this needs to be part of the debate.
Yeah. What is it that we're going to into the future? So I guess coming down to some really practical stuff, if you were marketing director of an organization right now, you've just come through, or we're still slightly in the pandemic, hybrid working is going on, everything needs to kind of become calm and streamlined and move forward with good progress. What 3 things would you do? What would be your 3 priorities?
So, I mean, I think following on from the debate we've just had, Natalie, I think it would be listening to customers and employees. And I think, you know, as you said, and the people working in the organisation in focusing around those 2 groups to help design the best solution for my business. And I think it's going to be quite personal to different businesses and different organizations. I don't think there's a formula that I can give, but I think listening to customers, listening to employees, and actually redesigning your brand experience to reflect your customers and their needs. And I think in some sectors, you know, it might look very different to others. I think creating a great culture, we talked about that at the beginning. So I think making that, you know, kind of clear sort of purpose for your eyes, that culture, and making it, making it inclusive and making everybody feel part of the organisation. And I think that starts with great onboarding, setting out the expectation of the brand experience that you want to give your customers, and then empowering and equipping your people to be able to do that. And again, we've talked about ways in which that might happen. And then lastly, I think is actually sort of celebrating the successes. Actually, we often forget to do this. And actually that helps to build organizational confidence that that we can do this. And I think it's really important to celebrate the small stories as much as the big stories, actually, because sometimes the big stories put people off. And when you hear the kind of small stories, everyone goes, oh, I can do that. But I think kind of building that organizational confidence, that we can be successful working in this way, in a hybrid working way, and just telling those stories, using different types of communication. We've talked about kind of video and things like that, and making people feel sort of part of things, feeling connected and in touch with your brand and your business.
Yeah, I love that. And earlier on you said about the use of video to do things like that, to keep people connected, tell their story as well at the front line. And I think this point you just made about celebrating successes to build confidence also builds that trust, doesn't it, in the organization? It puts the fun back into what we all do day in, day out, whether it's in our bedrooms, on our kitchen tables, or in our home offices, wherever we may be. So that kind of fun back in there is really important.
So I think reflecting back on our conversation, it's actually incredibly refreshing to hear Maria talking about hybrid working, not from the starting point of operational challenges or the difficulties, or where do we go with where our people are working, but actually starting almost from the ground up, saying we can design how we work in a hybrid working environment, but you've got to start with the foundations, you've got to start with the customer, you've got to start with employee experience, and build those things around the way that hybrid working is making us work, whether that be around digital or forcing employee experience to go down a certain path. So it's really refreshing to hear it from a very different perspective. And thank you very much for that. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And if you've got any questions or any particular topics you'd like to get in touch with us about, please do so. But otherwise, Maria, thank you very much. Natalie, thank you as always. And we will see you on the Flying Frog podcast next time.
Thanks, Graham. Thank you, Maria.